Do you want to start off by introducing yourself?
Sure, no problem. Hi, everyone. My name is Richard Bian. I go by Richard. And I'm currently working as a product and growth lead for Ant Ling Team, which is a foundational model built by Inclusion AI Lab as part of Ant Group. Ant Group is the master company of Alipay. So think of the relationship as Alphabet with Google. Yeah, so that's a master company. Yeah, so we're here with the conference because we have like multiple papers getting selected, and yeah, it's also a great place to meet researchers.
Yeah, I guess, do you want to tell us about some of the papers that you've been presenting here?
Yeah, yesterday we had an expo talk. So one of the latest releases from our Ant Ling team is basically this series of models called Ling 2.0. So the Ling 2.0 model series contains like several models. One is a Ling series, which stands for Linguistic. It's our non-reasoning model. We have different model sizes, all the way from the mini size to the maximum of like 1 trillion parameters, like Ling 1T. On the other hand, we have the Ring series as R stands for reasoning. So think of the relationship as DeepSeek V3 versus R1. I believe we are the first lab which open sourced 1 trillion parameters reasoning model on the planet. Yeah, so it's called Ring 1T. No surprise. Last but not least, we also have this series of models called Ming, as stands for multimodal. So we just recently released this Ming Flash Omni. It's an any-to-any model because that's what we believe the architectural innovation. While it can be a little bit difficult to climb up the hill at the very beginning, but it goes a long way. Yeah, so that's pretty much what our lab do, and our expo talk yesterday was all about this.
Cool, yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit more about why it was important to you guys that you open sourced all your models? I think, so I'm in academia, so everyone's doing experiments on the open models, but then lots of people, maybe in industry or regular users, are less excited about the open models. So I'm curious, why is it important to open source?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. I'm actually a software engineer by training, and before I joined the Ling team, I've been running the Ant Group open source team for 4 years. So open source is part of my gene, I would say. On the other side, a lot of people get, I would say, inspirations and enlightenment from the DeepSeek moment earlier this year. I believe that's late January, early February. Really appreciate how DeepSeek actually open source their models with their technical report. It gives very clear path in terms of where we should be going towards. But, honestly, it kind of feels like, as far as model development is concerning, it almost feels like all the ships are just heading out of Lisbon, back to the greatest navigation era. So it was only very beginning of a long, great journey. If you are kind of open sourcing your models, it will essentially generate all these kind of positive externalities for the others to benefit from. That's pretty much as much as I can tell how innovation happened during the last generation of technology advancement. We feel the same. In fact, how Ant Group perceives, models and our AGI initiative is we feel that we are probably the lab which is most similar to DeepSeek in terms of our intrinsic motivations of really trying to strike the boundaries of AGI. So when we're actually doing our models, we really care about how the models is being used in the actual scenarios, but we're not directly commercializing the model. So this is why it kind of feels like the fundamental research is important. And given that we're only at the very early stage of the game and we benefited from the other open models out there, we feel that we should be giving back as well.
Yeah, I'm actually curious if you can say more about the relationship between the sort of pure research side and the fintech product side, since I think it seems like there's some clear applications, but also, like you said, the basic research of releasing the model is not actually, you're not making new features on Alipay, right?
Right, understood. I would say maybe there are 3 interesting aspects associated with that. One, from the scenario perspective, you got to choose what kind of models you want to choose. Because there are, for better or for worse, there are so many models out there this year, and they're all really good. It's good for, I would say, the scenario builders or product builders, because now they have so many models to choose from. All the SKUs given from very small models like 3B dense all the way up to 1 trillion parameters MOE, right? So they can pretty much choose the right model for their own scenario. So the product side is not really bounded, as we call it, to a particular model developer. On the other hand, the model developers are pretty much doing their fundamental research. So for instance, at this moment we are at Ling 2.0. We are definitely working really hard of trying to train our next model to make it more useful. Because, even though I know, a couple of days ago when Ilya was saying on his own podcast, on his podcast saying that, hey, the pre-train is probably, a dead end. So what I'm kind of looking at is like he might be seeing models which are really mature, like, 5-6 trillions of parameters, but they're not open source. So we don't have, sufficient amount of details or understanding about what's going on out there. But we feel that, like as a researcher, as a research team, we feel there's a certain level of obligations that we should be looking for that frontier or the boundaries of the diminishing return, but we're not there yet. That's basically the perception from the model side. We'll keep exploring, and we'll probably share with the industry about what we find, so people can potentially have another, I would say, viable options of models with their own characteristic, which kind of brings that to the last point of mine. Is it kind of feels like even though there are so many models out there, for the end of the day, people can choose the models, and models can choose their own scenario. Almost feels like we have this product market fit. Kind of begin sensing there can be this model scenario fit. We're at the very early stage of that. At this moment, we lack sufficient amount of benchmarks. We lack comprehensive evaluations. And even if you have the evaluations of benchmarks to evaluate the certain core competencies, like SWE bench for the coding capability, we're actually lacking product-oriented benchmarks and evaluations. So I would say, almost feels like you're heading out for navigation or sailing without a map. Yeah, so we're trying to build that map, and we definitely feel that's a long journey. And the best thing we can do is to pretty much, tell the other ships, hey, this is a dead end. Let's not go there. And by the way, you probably want to tell us, if that's the right direction to go. We'll all sail together. Yeah, that's our take.
I really like that. What do you think is going to go on? What are you hoping to find on this map? Like you mentioned, sort of product-focused benchmarks, for example. Like I don't know if how much you're allowed to say, but like, what do you think would go into them?
I would say the best part is I don't know. I mean, like if we really know the answer to that, what we can do is I'll probably just like quit and do my own startup. But honestly, we don't know. The reason I'm saying that is because I think we're at this very early stage of this new development cycles, right? So the way I'm kind of looking into the development life cycles in the past is I think there are at least like 4 different stages, entities: the technology, the product, business models, and organization. It kind of goes in a loop. At this moment, I think we are still at the very early stage of the next iteration. We are probably on the technology base. We are barely moving towards the product base. So the way I'm kind of looking at it is we don't really have a very clear business model associated with most of the usage scenarios, aside from coding agent, which has been evidently clear. It can be a right direction to go. But it's just like how you're actually sailing out of, Lisbon, you can head west or head east, right? Yeah. So if you're finding one path which will lead you into a land, it's probably not, your final destination. You can call that India, but that's not the real India. Yeah. So I would say that, the way we're kind of looking into the map is the most important thing is to be on the journey and keep looking. It's too early to call it a day and say that, hey, this is what we should be doing. So that's rule number 1. And rule number 2 is be open-minded and be pragmatic. Just like how you're actually doing the sailing is you probably don't want to head towards one direction blindly. But you probably want to take iterative approaches like scientific methods. We probably want to go there for a couple of days and, even if we don't really have a positive signal, let's rewind and repeat. So all of that, I kind of feel that we're definitely doing that. Last but not least, always keeps the user in mind. I would say at this moment we are building, because I did mention that I'm leading a product team, but we're not really building product for the users nowadays. We're building the product for the users in the future. So that requires some strategic thinking, and I would say adventurous thought processes in which you need to get out of your comfort zone. You did ask about our fintech, related areas. That has been evidently clear that you can use AI or Gen AI to accelerate some of those scenarios, like increase productivity, reduce costs, giving user better, conversational experiences, supporting the customer success, as long as trust. Those are given. right? You can definitely use the current technology to improve those experiences. But what our team is trying to do is we're trying to be a little bit more above and beyond, and we are trying to look for the new scenario in which might not currently exist in the current book. We'll see how that goes.
Okay, I have a little bit of a selfish question, which is, so since I'm a grad student, I think a lot about, and I talk to a lot of grad students who are making decisions about do they want to stay in academia, do they want to go into industry, and as far as I know, I think Chinese academia is a little bit different from American academia, Chinese industry is probably a little bit different from American industry. I'm curious how you think about your relationship to academia broadly, whether it's, Chinese academia or globally, and how you think about when you're recruiting researchers, what you're looking for. I think when you describe you're going out on a ship and maybe you have to turn back, that's something that I'm very familiar with.
Well, just making a disclaimer, opinions are my own because they don't reflect my company's. Similar things applies to all the things I mentioned before. Yeah, so just my 2 cents on this. I feel like I'm personally blessed with education. I was born and raised in China, but I had my high school education in Singapore going through the GC O-level and GC A-level. And I went to Toronto, Canada for my university and came to the States. I've been working in the States for 11 years before I go back to China for family reasons. Yeah, so I had a lot of exposures to different education systems. So when I'm kind of looking at this, I would say education is a continually evolving game. It's not stagnant. Second, I think the current Gen AI era will fundamentally change how people acquire knowledge of factual related information, which means a lot of the memory related stuff or, maybe creative writings, a lot of those will change a lot because now you just have this very capable tool, which essentially offers you something which you probably requires 10 years of trainings before. Translation is probably a done deal too. But there are certain things about the education, in my humble opinion, are not really changing. First thing first, how we are solving problem, that particular chain of thought is something that everyone still need to be able to acquire. Critical thinking, understanding the business processes, operational expenses, strategy. Basically, I went to Berkeley Haas, and a lot of the educations we acquire in the B school, I would say, it's still something goes a long way and cannot easily be replaced by the existing tools. Second, I would say a lot of the pragmatic thinking or, the raw creativity. By saying raw creativity, I really love the metaphor of saying that pre-training is probably a condensed version of human knowledge combined today, and we do a lossy compression on top of that. It's still a lossy compression with a vast understanding of knowledge. But what about taste, right? When we say taste, it means that the ability to come out with something new and original. We're still seeing people doing that on the RC side. Comics, writings. We see new ways of doing things every single day. And we cannot really only rely on existing knowledge. Just to quote on Ilya again, I think toward the end of his podcast, he did mention that, are we envisioning a future with 100 Ilyas, agent, running the world? It might be a pretty good one, but I like how he put it in there. It's I don't think that's the right direction because diversity really matters. And the only way you're getting diversity is not to rely on the existing. That's pretty much my take on that. We're all different, and we are probably having opinions which can be right or wrong. We're probably having a certain level of taste regarding a lot of things which can be good or bad, but it doesn't matter. It makes us so unique.
That's super nice. Last question. In 3 to 5 years, let's say all of your research bets pan out. Every single paper ends up being a paper. There's no turning back from the shifts. What do you think this sort of world looks like? What does success look like in 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, interesting enough. We did a lot of discussions in terms of pretty much the old Greek way of, mental battles. People keep claiming that LLMs are good enough to replace jobs now, which essentially means existing human beings can finish their work in a much shorter time and go back to family early. In reality, we're seeing almost everyone working really hard, we're kind of making this 996 joke, right? But now it's basically whoever is currently working is actually working excessively harder than before. What's going on there? So when I'm kind of looking at it, it's just the technology is not good enough. It's getting there, but it's not good enough. So in the next 5 years, I'm definitely seeing the technology is getting better. Of course, there will be this kind of law of physics which give a diminishing return, right? Which essentially means the time that you begin seeing all the great products begin showing up, which can really reduce the workload on a day-to-day basis. So for instance, recording can be much easier. So we can save our time here today. And all of that, I would say, like, we're kind of seeing some of the trend over there, but we're going to be having more products in the verticals which can really reduce the workload and hassles and give time back to the humans, which they'll find other ways to waste. So there will definitely be this kind of new series of products which are going to be helping waste more time. And I can only imagine some of those. But I honestly don't really like, Gen AI generated videos. Not yet. They're not there yet. And probably they're going to be good enough one day just to be able to give us more time back. But I would rather think that we'll be using those times to really generating some diversified taste so that we have this additional data feedback loop coming back to the model. I would imagine that, if I'm working hard enough now, if I have say 2 or 3 additional days free each week, I can use those time really wisely. I can enjoy my life and take great pictures, write articles, and do my own analysis. I believe those can be really diversifiedly elegant for the model to take as additional data. I'm very confident for that.
Yeah, I like that. That's a nice end for this, I think. Yeah, thanks for taking the time to chat.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jessica. Thanks so much for having me.